to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul, and he leadeth me into the path of right.
One of the biggest secrets that's not really a secret at all, except to many African Americans, is they are not descended from Africans. I know, I was shocked too, so much so that I asked Africans, and they agreed African Americans weren't Africans. If you don't believe me, Google Arnaldus Montanus America and see the people he saw in 1671. Read books like The Black American Handbook for Survival through the 21st Century by Radine Amin-Ra, What Every African American Should Know by Carrie Davis, and Africans and Native Americans by Jack Forbes. I just can't believe schools aren't teaching this stuff. What a travesty.
All praise to the Most High. In the name of His only begotten Son. And what we're doing right now is we're just looking at Jacob's sons. Getting ready to start part 2. And last time I went over Reuben and Simeon. Actually, I have more on those. There's way more information on those. I may do a little more. But this time I'm going after Levi and Judah. Yeah, these is where things get really cranked up. Really cranked up. But initially these prophecies happened to the children of Israel, or the African American, aka the children of Israel. And we're going to look at, we're going to start at Genesis, put a picture there, excuse me, 29, and we'll start at 34, excuse me. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. And therefore was his name called Levi. So, we need to pay attention to who? My husband, right? And actually, the she. The husband and joined unto me. Very important words here. And Levi, we all know, they were the priests of all 12 tribes. And, you know, that's, in a nutshell, the power and the covenants and everything came with this son here. So, I could read on to Judah, but I'm going to start here. Okay, so we'll look at husband. And another word for husband is bridegroom. And joined unto me. We're going to look at that joined. That joined is married. Therefore, she called his name Levi. Okay? So, my husband. I'm going to look at a couple of precepts for that. Yeah. For those of you that don't know, I'm going to go to where you're supposed to break it down. Okay? Excuse me. This is Isaiah chapter 28. And I'll start at 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And to whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here a little and there a little. Okay? So, with using that method, we're going to break down the husband. Let's go to Psalms 19, verse 5. Psalms 19, verse 5. And it reads, which is as the bridegroom cometh out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run a race. Now this is King David. He's talking about the Most High. Okay? This is why he's the bridegroom. Or, Shalakia. Yeah, the bridegroom.
But not only that, I'll go on even further to say this, that the slave trade is actually connected to Deuteronomy 28, because the majority of the slaves that were brought to the Caribbean islands and brought to the Americas were Ibu people, were people of Hebrew and Hebraic Israelite descent, if you will. And so if you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, it matches perfectly what happened to the Hebrew slaves, the black Hebrew slaves, during the slave trade. It just matches it perfectly.
Back up now. I think we just rung a bell here. Hold up now.
Okay.
Hold up. Hold the presses.
Okay.
Hold up. I hope everyone is listening to this. This is you about to rock some boats now.
So we move from Psalms to Isaiah chapter 49 and 18. 49 and 18. And it reads, lift up thine eyes round about, and behold, all these gathered themselves together, and come to thee. As I live, says the Most High, thou shalt surely clothe thee with them all, as with an ornament, and bind them on thee, as a bride doeth. Okay, we're talking about the bride now. Okay. Now we're going to 61:10. And it reads, I will greatly rejoice in the Lord, my soul shall be joyful in my Elohim. For he has clothed me with the garments of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorneth herself with her jewels. Okay? Oh yeah, there's more. 62 and 5. Right next to it. For as a young man married a virgin, so shall thy sons marry thee. And as the bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so shall thy Elohim rejoice over thee. Talking about the elect of Israel. Okay, the one that comes back to him. Okay, let's go to Jeremiah. Jeremiah 2 and 32. Right here. Can a maid forget her ornaments, or a bride her attire? Yet my people have forgotten me days without number. You see that? He's likened to Israel into a bride. Okay. So on the surface, it looks like Leah, of our great grandmother, is talking about her marriage with our great grandfather Jacob. But initially, these phrases are prophecies, and they're talking about the whole 12 tribes, the whole nation. Okay, these things are going to befall them and happen to them, and be a part of what happens. Yeah, what happens to them. So we'll go to 33:11. Same book, Jeremiah 33:11. 11. The voice of joy and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the voice of them that shall say, Praise the Most High of hosts, for the Most High is good, for his mercy endureth forever, and of them that shall bring the sacrifice of praise into the house of the Most High, for I will cause to return the captivity of the land. What land? Israel. It ain't talking about the planet. As at the first.
Over 4,000 years ago, God appeared to Abraham in Mesopotamia and said to him, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation. Abraham obeyed the Lord, and came into the promised land of Canaan, for he lived along with his son Isaac, and his grandson Jacob, who was later renamed Israel. Israel and his 12 sons went down into Egypt because of a famine in the land of Canaan. And there they multiplied into a mighty nation. The Egyptians felt threatened by the powerful nation of Israel living among them. So they enslaved them and made their lives bitter with hard bondage. After 430 years in Egypt, they were let out of bondage by Moses, then crossed the Red Sea and went into Arabia, where they received the law of God at Mount Sinai. The generation of Israelites that left Egypt with Moses were not allowed to enter the promised land because of their lack of faith.
Jeremiah 3:14. Turn, O backsliding children, says the Most High, for I am married unto you, and I will take you one of a city and two of a family, and I will bring you to Zion. See, it's talking about our return. It's talking about when he telling Israel, or telling the African American, aka the Israelite, turn, O backsliding children, says the Most High, for I am married unto you. Okay? Married. That's where they got more. Let's go to Joel 2:16. Hosea. Oh yeah, Hosea too. Hosea got it too. And this is the divorce. And why we have to be grafted in. But for time's sake, I didn't write that one. So I'm going to cover that one. If I don't do it in this one, I'll cover it in another video. Right now I need Joel 2. And what I say? 16? 16. That's 2. 16. So right there. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children, and those that suck the breast. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber, and the bride out of her closet. See, let us show up together, baby. Yeah, let us all break forth. Okay? Let's go to Matthew 9:15. Let's go some New Testament. (9:15). And Jesus said unto them, Can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then they shall fast. Or shall they fast. Okay? And this is all the bride. This is the same bride that they're referring to, that Leah is speaking on behalf of and speaking prophecy in Genesis chapter 29 and 34, I believe. 33, 34. We'll go back to it, but let's get that 25 and 1. Same book, Matthew. And 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins whom took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. See that? And 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. See, now that's a parable. We can get into that later, but I need to stay on point because actually there's so many jewels in here that it is easy to go off. So we'll stick to that. Stick to the point. What I'm trying to do is trying to help you understand who is the bride and who is the groom, and who's the whole marriage thing, and why Mashiach is called the bridegroom. You know.
Exodus of the Israelites from their slavery, when God brought them to the foot of Mount Sinai and invited Israel into a covenant relationship. Now, they had quickly rebelled and broke that covenant, and God had wanted for his glorious presence to come and live right in the midst of Israel in the form of this tabernacle. But Israel's sin has damaged the relationship. So, at the end of the previous book, Exodus, Moses, as Israel's representative, could not even enter God's presence in the tent. The book of Leviticus opens by reminding us of this fundamental problem. It says, "The Lord called to Moses from the tent." So the question is, how can Israel, in their sin and selfishness, be reconciled to this holy God? That's what this book is all about, how God is graciously providing a way for sinful, corrupt people to live in his holy presence. Now, let's pause for a second and explore this really important idea that God is holy. It's fundamental to understanding this book. The word holy means simply to be set apart or unique. And in the Bible, God is set apart from all other things because of his unique role as the creator of all, as the author of life itself. And so if God is holy, then the space around God is also holy. It's full of his goodness and his life and purity and justice. So if Israel, who is unjust and sinful, wants to live in God's holy presence, they too need to become holy. Their sin has to be dealt with. Thus, the book of Leviticus. Now, the book has a really amazing symmetrical design. It explores the 3 main ways that God helps Israel to live in his presence. The outer sections are descriptions of the rituals Israel was to practice in God's holy presence. The next inner sections focus on the role of Israel's priests as mediators between God and Israel. And inside of that are 2 matching sections that focus on Israel's purity. And then right here at the center of the book, there's a key ritual, the Day of Atonement, that brings the whole book together. The book concludes with a short section where Moses calls on Israel to be faithful to this covenant. Let's dive.
Now, we're going to witness right now the marriage, tying the knot. Okay? Verse 4. And Moses wrote all these words of the Most High and rose up early in the morning and built an altar under the hill. And 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. See, the world is not mentioned. This is what was put up, the marriage. Verse 5, and he set young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Most High. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in the basin, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said, all that the Lord had said we will do and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, Behold, the blood of the covenant which the Most High has made with you concerning all these words. You see that? That's the marriage. Okay? So, we have her husband. Oh, kind of blurry. Bring that out. Excuse me. So we have the bride and the husband right there. That's the actual set. That's during the ceremony. All right. So let's get the divorce. Let's go back to that Hosea. I said two, but it's probably one.
Annual feast, the Day of Atonement. Odds are that not every Israelite's sin and rebellion would be covered through the individual sacrifices. And so once a year, the high priest would take 2 goats. One of these would become a purification offering and atone for the sins of the people. And the other was called the scapegoat. The priest would confess the sins of Israel and symbolically place them on this goat, and then it would be cast out into the wilderness. Again, this is a very powerful image of God's desire to remove sin and its consequences from his people, so that God can live with them in peace. The book concludes with Moses calling Israel to be faithful to all of the terms of the covenant. And he describes the blessings of peace and abundance that will result if Israel obeys all of these laws. He also warns them that if they're unfaithful and dishonor God's holiness, it will result in disaster and ultimately exile from the land promised to Abraham. Now, if you want to see how Leviticus fits into the big storyline, it's helpful to look at the first sentence of the next book of the Bible, Numbers. It begins, "The Lord spoke to Moses in the tent." So we can see that Moses is now able to enter God's presence on behalf of Israel. The book of Leviticus, it worked. So despite Israel's failure, God has provided a way for their sin to be covered so that God can live with sinful people in peace. And that's what the book of Leviticus is all about.
I'll start at 6. Okay. Now when she had weaned the Luho-Ramah, she conceived and bare a son. Then said Elohim, Call his name Lo-Ammi, for ye are not my people, and I will not be your Elohim. See that? Let's go to Romans 7:3. Seven and 3. So then, if while her husband liveth, she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. See that? But if her husband be dead, which Mashiach died, he came, he died for us, she is free from that law. So that she is no adulteress, though she is married to another man. Okay? Now, the point is he had to die to get us out of it. Not him. He didn't have to get out of it. He died to get us out of it, but not out of doing it, out of the payment. Or he wanted to take up the full bill, the full penalty for breaking those commandments. So we have another shot at grace now. Not to not do the commandments, but to grace in doing them and trying to the best of your ability. So that law is, grace is abounding that law. But it doesn't mean to go and break it.
Europeans treated slaves like cargo. They were locked inside cells for weeks until ships could take them to colonies across the ocean. For slaves, life on a slave ship during the Middle Passage was a nightmare. Even crew members were shocked by the conditions in the slave holds.
When I had to enter the slave deck, I was forced to crawl over the slaves. The Negroes are frequently packed so close together that they have not so much room as a man in his coffin. I was so overcome with the heat, dense and foul air that I nearly fainted. It was only with assistance I could get on deck.
Alexander Falconbridge. Although the transatlantic slave trade, the bringing of slaves from Africa to the Americas, was abolished by U.S. law in 1804, some traders chose to ignore the law. They continued to capture Africans and transport them across the Atlantic.
Of people portraying Yah's chosen people, they're receiving payments of reparations when the Most High's chosen people were shipped to the Americas on slave ships. Let's face it, they not the faces of biblical pages. They became a nation of imitation, occupying the borders of places that didn't give them an invitation. They have fake us, tried to erase us, learn our language, mixed it with German and tried to replace us. But I get credit where credit is due. They did a good job, because we won't even wake up. And when we try to tell the truth to Christians, they don't embrace us. Even if we had plenty of blush and a soft brush, there are some things you just can't make up. And all I could think about is Yahusha's statement, synagogue of Satan. Their impressions ain't even impressive. They're like a melanin should be the elephant in the room, but no one wants to question it. Because prejudice is prevalent. Racism is evident. Evidently, even if all signs point to us, we still need indisputable evidence.
So then, if while her husband liveth, the Most High living, she is married to another man or another god, she shall be called an adulteress, which is breaking the commandments. Thou shalt have no other god before me. But if her husband, the Most High, be dead, Christ died, she is free from that law. Now, I know a lot of people may be thinking, see, he did away with the law. That's not what that means. So that she is no more an adulteress, though she be married to another man. Mashiach. Okay? So in this way, the Mashiach is standing in for the Most High in this matter. That's the whole point of him being the bridegroom now. See, the Most High is the husband. Where is it? Yeah, the husband here. But to take his place, because he can't actually die, Mashiach stepped in his place to fulfill this part. Okay? She'd be married to another man. She'd be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from that law. So that she is no more an adulteress, though she be married to another man. Okay, let's break that down. Now, the reason, okay, let's look at that law. Okay, now the law that the woman or Israel is free from is not the whole complete commandments, the law, statutes, and commandments. That's not what that means. It means there is a law concerning a woman being married to a man. And if she puts him away and marries another, she commits adultery. So when it says if her husband, but if her husband be dead, she is free from that law. See, that law, not the law. It's that law. Okay, we have to look at that law. Okay. That's if I can give you a little bit of it. If a man take a wife and go into her and hate her and give occasions of speech against her and bring her up and bring up an evil name upon her and say, I took this woman when I came to her, I found her not a maid. Okay. And by the way, that's maid. A maid is a virgin. Okay. Excuse me. Then shall the father of the damsel and her mother take and bring forth the tokens of the damsel's virginity unto the elders of the city in the gate. And the damsel's father shall say unto the elders, I gave my daughter unto this man to wife, and he hated her. And lo, he has given occasions of speech against her, saying, I found not thy daughter a maid. And yet these are the tokens of my daughter's virginity. And they shall spread the cloth before the elders of the city. Okay. I got to pause right here because who he's speaking of, if the Most High brought up accusations against Israel, saying he found her not a maid, the mother and the father bring the tokens of the damsel's virginity here to the city of the gate. Now, this is a sign to the husband if she was or to the parents, because in these tokens you give that to the parents so they hold it just in case this happens. Okay. I'll just keep going. I'll just start back at I'll keep going at 18. And the elders of the city shall take that man and chastise him, and they shall immerse him in 100 shekels of silver and give them to the father of the damsel, because he has brought up an evil name upon the virgin of Israel, and she shall be his wife. He may not put her away all the days. Let's see, this is where it got a problem for us, Israel. Okay, because this would happen to you for doing what we did. This is why he had to break that off, because we had to pay this penalty. Verse 20. But if this thing be true, and the tokens of virginity be not found for the damsel, then they shall bring out the damsel to the door of the father's house, and the men of the city shall stone her with stones, that she died, because she brought folly in Israel, to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put away evil from among you. See that? And also, I mean, I could keep going. We went off and started serving idols. So something had to happen, or we would have had to be taken to the gate and stoned, like we was washed up. But see, as Romans chapter 7 and 3 states that if the man die, then she's free from that law, though she marry another man. Okay? So this is why the bridegroom, he's coming back to that makes it official. You know, you got that token of the blood of that virginity. That's the only way that you're going to get a pass. Or, I hate to call it a pass, but forgiven. Okay? But that does not mean to continue to go and break the whole thing. Okay? The whole thing. People just want to take it and throw it out the window. Everything he said, and he clearly is saying don't do that. But see, a lot of people that wants to be lawless would turn to Romans chapter 7 and 3 and say, well, see, he died for that law. Or the law. They will put the law where he said that law.
And if Paul was going to pervert Christianity, we'd have an epistle of Paul to the Ethiopians, an epistle of Paul to the Egyptians, an epistle of Paul to the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Right.
We don't have that. There's no epistle of Paul to the Arabs. There's no epistle of Paul to the Babylonians.
Exactly.
There's no epistle of Paul to the Edomites.
Yeah, right.
Paul could have very easily perverted Christianity.
Right. And
the Paul bashers are just idiots for not seeing that.
And of course, in other books, Paul definitely says that the Edomites are vessels fit for destruction.
Of destruction,
yes.
right.
He does not include them among the Israelites.
And he doesn't include any nation that's non-Israelite.
Right.
Every one of those people Paul wrote an epistle to were dispersed Israelites.
Right, right. And he excludes the descendants of Ishmael, which is your today's Arabs, right?
Absolutely. He excludes them, explicitly excludes them.
Right. So,
okay. So what we have is, we have the Most High had accusations of speech against us, or Israel. The evil name. And he found us not a maid. Okay, we're the woman. Found out not a maid. As I said, a maid is a virgin. A maid is always a maid. A virgin is sometimes a maid. Okay? In other words, you can be a maid and a virgin at the same time. But you can be beyond the age of being a maid, which is a young woman of marriageable age, or you can be an older virgin. Okay? So a virgin is a maid, but a maid is a virgin, but a virgin is not always a maid. Okay? She can be past those years. Okay? Which, by the way, this is why the disciples are referred to as virgins. Okay? That don't mean they're young women. This means they were solely to the Elohim of Israel, or the Most High. Makes him a virgin. They don't serve any other gods. Okay? I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now, this accusation that he brought against Israel was true. We did go play the whore in our father's house. Right? When we went off and started serving idols. Okay? So, when our mother and fathers, or our nation, brings forth the tokens of virginity, what's the tokens of virginity? The Messiah, the blood of the Messiah, is the token of the virginity. We're bringing before everybody to see in the gate. All right. This is why we're clear. Now, before he died, we were 20. Okay? But if this thing be true, and the tokens of virginity be not found, see, they were not found before Mashiach. We didn't have that token of that virginity. Okay? Therefore, we would have been stoned with stones. Okay? This is just one law that he helped us out on. And doing what he did, the way that he did things. Or he made his plan come about. He thought of everything. Okay?
All the people that fit what's in this book of who it says that the true house of Israel is, the lost tribes of Israel. They're lost. You know, they say they're scattered. We don't know who they are. I know who they are. It's clear. It's you guys.
What do you mean by you guys?
The folks that were sent through the transatlantic slave trade. The folks that are still in the lands of their captivity. Israel is in the lands of their captivity. There is no creation of the so-called Jewish state of Israel in 1948. That does not fit prophecy. Those people over there that call themselves Jews, they call their own selves Ashkenazi. If you go look at Genesis chapter 10, 1 through 5, it tells you Ashkenaz is descended from Japheth, Noah's son Japheth, not Shem. That means he's a Gentile. I'm a Gentile. You know, we're Gentiles. And I mean, like, I wasn't brainwashed. I got the Bible before they do the brainwashing of the programming and try to make you think Egypt is white, which is ridiculous because it's Africa. So, you know, all that's Africa.
Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can just to hide this away from you. Gonna take Israel, gonna bring white people here and to tell you these are the Jews, gonna kill you, gonna kill Arabs, gonna mistreat white people like this guy just to tell you this lie that you are nobody and we are the Jews with all the history and so on. It has been deleted, your history. You don't know who you are. Don't forget about it. This is why America has been taking your history away, never to find out that it's all about you. I'm telling you this, please. I don't ask you to come to Israel and to start a revolution. I'm just asking you to start.
I remember the 400. I was a Christian missionary for years, but there came a time in my life when I realized that what I was taught about the Bible was a lie. In my confusion, I cried out for help. I met an Israelite who introduced me to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, who is described in the Bible as having hair white as wool and eyes red as fire. Yes, the God in the Bible is black. I'm grateful to witness the end of a 400-year period of slavery, foretold in the Bible of God's people, the Israelites in this new Egypt.
And the form of the anger, but they were speaking truth. The Hebrew Israelites, God's chosen people, are what we call African American. Okay, they're not African and they're not American. They are God's chosen people, as well as the Indians and the Mexicans. And if it's the first time you're hearing this, you need to read the Bible. Because the proof is in the Bible, in genetics. Anyways, you need to read. Okay, you need to pray about this.
Liberals who have lifted them up, Howard.
Paul,
You conservatives make a mistake. You can't afford to strangle hope in people. Without hope, people become dangerous.
No, Howard. You liberals have let them invade our society. You give them jobs, political jobs.
Oh, you missed the point. It's only the smart ones we move up.
That makes it even worse.
No, we have to move them up. If we leave a smart one in the ghetto, he might develop into a leader against us. But if we raise him up into white society, we neutralize him. He feels compelled to try to act like us. He loses his identity and his racial anger, if he has any. He becomes alien to his brothers. They realize he sold them out, and they grow to hate him. He becomes worthless to them and safe for us. No, thank you. In fact, in his love for the creature comforts, except for his color, he's become one of us.
Still, let's get another example. Let's chew on this one right here. Okay? Chew on this one. This is another law. So Deuteronomy chapter 24. Deuteronomy 24, and I'll start at 1. Now, check this out. Okay, because this this is also tied in there. This is a law. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1, and it reads, when a man has taken a wife, in this case the man is the Most High, has taken a wife, Israel, and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because we went off and started serving idols. Okay? Because he has found some uncleanness in her. See? It's justified. Then let him write her a bill of divorcement. This is why he divorced us. All 12 tribes. He started with the northern kingdom, ended with the southern kingdom, wrote them a bill of divorce, and gave it in her hand and sent her out of his house. We got kicked out of the land of Israel. Okay? He did it to Samaria for the northern kingdom, and he did it to Jerusalem in the southern kingdom. But let's go. Let's keep going. In verse 2. And when she is departed, see, out of his house, because the land is the Most High's and not actual Israel. So let me make that clearer. So, when she's going out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. Okay? So, we can do Mashiach right there. But see, the thing is, where Mashiach or the Messiah comes in, he's playing the second husband. Okay, let me read that again. I'll start back at 2. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband, the one that she took after that, hate her and write her a bill of divorcement and give it in her hand and send it her out of his house, okay? Or if the latter husband die, see, Mashiach didn't hate us, but he died, which took her to be his wife. This is the law. Her former husband, which sent her away, the former is the one she had before, that which is the Most High, he's the former husband, sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife. This is why the Mashiach had to stand in his place. And this is why he had to be just like the Most High. He had to be to him like a T. Was his agenda. This is what he had to fulfill. To be the father for Israel, to be his wife, and him to stand in as the Most High. It's like being remarried to the Most High, but not. Okay, because everything all the judgments, everything, commandments, he brought it all from the Father. He committed his life to the Father. So even if we were married to the Messiah, it'd be just like being married to the Father. That's why he couldn't go off and do new things. Okay? Start again at 4. Her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled. For that is an abomination before the Most High. And thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Most High that power giveth thee for an inheritance. Okay? Now, chew on that one. That's the law. And he figured out a way around that. He couldn't marry us again, but he had a substitute who's just like him, down to a T. So the orders and the speech and the emotions and the judgments and everything comes with being the Most High, he had to be in line with. Because that remarriage or the new covenant will be with that. It appears to be a new God, but it's the same one because he gets his orders from the Most High. The Most High uses him to give orders to set the rules and everything. It'll be just like they are still married to the Most High, but not. Okay. This is why he had to do that, doing things just like that, because in the end, he's going to bring them right back to the Father. So I hate to use the word. I would say puppet, but more like a ventriloquist. He's completely controlled by the Father. He speaks what he wants him to speak, goes where he wants him to go, so on and so forth. So, in that being, it's an exact replica of the Father. This is why it's not another God, because he's still doing everything that the Father wanted. Everything. It's like he's the big man and he ain't got to do nothing else because his representative is going to do everything like he wanted him to do it. He could just sit back and cool out and enjoy his glory. Now there's an example of it's no more than going out to war and you let your generals and everything fight and you win the war and they bring everything back to the high man, the big man. Everything is still his. The kingdom is his. But he didn't actually fight, or he didn't actually go out to battle, but they bring all the riches and all the spoil and everything back to the big man and giving it to his hand. It's the exact same thing that Christ did. So in the end, he's just as the Father. Because he's mimicking him completely. Okay? That's another jewel right there. Okay, this is why he had to do it that way. And while Christ switched over to the bridegroom. So the husband, she divorced the husband, true enough. We can't marry him again. But we can marry his representative. And his representative has to be everything that he is. Okay? He figured out a way to do it. to marry us again, but not marry us again. Because when we marry the Messiah, it'd be just like marrying him. Just like it. The next best thing we got. The next best thing. Okay. And that was Deuteronomy 24. And I read 1 through 4. Okay.
אחורה שואלים מאיפה באתי, מה ראיתי, מה עשיתי, איך לכאן הגעתי. בלי לפגוע זה לא רלוונטי, השאלה שאני שואל זה למה רצחו את רבין. היי יאו, אמא מעשנת סיגריות כל יום, ואח שלי בצבא נלחם בשביל שלום. אל תבקשו ממני סירים למועדון, אני אשתף את הכאב עד שתמות לי הלשון. אבל הדרך שבחרתי יו בכלל לא קל, עדיין איזה מזל, יבוא הקדוש שומר לי על הראש, אז לא משנה כמה קשה יהיה, לא מתכוון לפרוש. איש אחד בלב העיר נלחם בשביל שינוי, הוא חזק למרות שהוא צעיר, האם יש לו סיכוי? קוראים לו בן ישראל, קוראים לו בן ישראל, קוראים לו בן ישראל, קוראים לו בן ישראל.
העד מלא דיו, המוח מפוצץ במחשבות חיוביות, אבל אני לא חי באשליה, הכל יכול